All right, Europe is on alert as 4 countries are tipped to be the next Vladimir Putin's invasion hit list. Now, mind you, even if you do not believe the headlines that come out of some of the MSM, which again, they're telling the majority of people that just go, oh, really? Are they? They're telling them that they're implying that Russia is going to take not only Ukraine, but they've got all of these other countries on the list. Now, I'm not saying that that is not true. That also could be a truth right at this point. Now, between now and January, there's still this window where many of us believe that, you're dealing with a country that could have waved a stick and ended everything, but did not. And you start to ask yourself, why? If there are so many actions that are happening just because a certain person is coming into power, you wonder, well, if you have the same exact powers as somebody else, why wasn't that done before? But they say that Vladimir Putin could target 4 European countries with a military invasion once he's done in Ukraine. Well, duh. This is what they've been saying since the beginning, right? Well, why are they saying it right now? Why is the timing of this these articles coming out? Why is this important? Putin's troops who are being humiliated on the battlefield, which again, if you remember, news used to kind of resemble something other than opinion. But again, it says being humiliated on the battlefield have been carrying out their illegal full-scale invasion of Ukraine since February of 2022. But the Russian president has suggested on a number of occasions he has an ambition of restoring the Russian Empire, meaning other European nations could be next on his hit list. Of course, Nick Drummond, a defense and security expert, told the Daily Express that Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, collectively known as the Baltic states, and NATO knows it as they know it as NATO's doorstep, or doormat even. Moldova and even some territories in Africa could be targeted by Russian forces. Now, the Moldova part, I do slightly believe that because they actually had a map of Belarus. President Lukashenko standing there with an arrow, red arrow going from Ukraine into Moldova. But again, we don't know the context. Was it showing, of course, Allied troops or Ukraine going into there? We didn't really have a clear enough picture to see. But it awfully looked like they were going to go into Ukraine and then go into Moldova. This very well could be what happened because if you remember, they actually said, oh, no, we're just doing a drill when they put 160,000 troops on the border of Ukraine the first time, which is when we said that they were looking like they were doing a practice run for an invasion. A year later, almost exactly, they ended up invading. So we'll talk about this and much, much more. In fact, on the list today, there is a lot. We've got Iran, huge border news, huge AI news with China, and of course, North Korea. So we'll talk about all of that right now. Don't go anywhere. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? What is up, Foogle fam? Hey, I see lots of really awesome people in the chat. We've got Briar Patch, we have CR Users, Boring Hornet, what is happening? We have Jammer. We have Lord Andrew. We have Sean C. What is up, Gemcat? Jason M. Schmidt. Rip Curl Readiness. And by the way, if you say you love a certain type of food, just saying, maybe somebody in the chat can tell them what else that might mean. Just so you know. All right, and then let's see here. Let's go over to, we're going to go over to a bunch of stuff tonight. We actually have everything. And remember, you can always find a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document over on marfooglenews.com. You, of course, have a full source list, so every single article, tweet, video, picture, document is there at your fingertips. That way you have the resources right there for you. All right, let's bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So now, first of all, how they frame this is Europe on alert. Just the first three words, right? Europe on alert. That is very scary, but what scares me more is why are they coming out with this, the timing of this? Now we're still in November, early November, and if we rewind back to this point from the near future, will we see that this timing had some importance? Mind you, even if that wasn't their agenda to go into 4 different countries, what if something will be done to trigger that? Or what if that really is the ordeal and nobody's talking about it yet? What if there is some big thing happening? Now, they put this out at the same time that there is obvious news that they have 50,000 troops amassed in Kursk. Now, 50,000 isn't enough to invade a country, but one thing I will tell you is that there are even generals that are saying Russia has not used their main military. And by main military, I mean their basically the 95% of their military that has been untouched. They're well-trained guys. They're really good equipment. They're brand new technology. They're brand new jets. Everything, all on the top tiers, has not been touched. And this is something I've seen since day one when they immediately conscripted. They conscripted as if they were in a war for 10 years and they didn't have anybody left to fight. So they were grabbing people out of prisons and off the streets and grabbing these people and throwing them into the front line. And not only that, you would think that they're so poor they can't even afford weapons because they were sending them in with 100-year-old rifles. They were sending them with, I think it was T-60s. I forget what the older tanks are. These are World War II era tanks, 100-year World War I almost weapons. And it was like, why are they doing this? Well, it almost seemed like they had all of these stored away somewhere, and they're like, well, give them all the trash and see what kind of damage you can do with, basically, without touching any of our actual stash. It's really quite obvious to me that they are not using their main military and saving it for something else. Dex, what do you think about as far as they're saying, Europe on alert?
Well, this is a total Ganda piece, in my opinion, because of the fact that they've said this so many times. They've told us about, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Moldova over and over again. Now, it doesn't mean they haven't been, and they're not strategically important. I mean, when you look at, okay, well, if Russia was going to make a move into Europe, absolutely makes sense. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania would be hit first. They've said it. Russia said it. Everyone said it. They would move in towards Kaliningrad and close that area off immediately. That would make the most logical sense. And then, of course, Moldova has been talked about ad nauseum because there is a stronghold of support in Russia and a conclave there inside of Moldova that, they even have troops in there. So, that is yet another logical point. I think it's all about timing right now and getting this message out and making, either hyping up the war train, so to speak, or it has a lot to do with what's recently happened here with the November event here in the States. So that's my belief on it.
And obviously, it's not like in the next less than 2 months that they can take over the entire world or take over all of Europe, but a lot can happen in 2 months. And that's the other thing, is you are also constantly starting to see after the first couple days, after everybody's like, oh, well, they're for sure, calling Donald as the winner. Now you're seeing a lot of pieces about what they could possibly do to undo it, or to not let it actually be put into place, right? To not let him take charge. The other thing you've seen over the last 4 or 5 days is, overwhelming videos of people that are like, yeah, rock on. This is awesome. You see hope as at an all-time high. And I mean, there's so many claims of things that are going to supposedly change. I mean, some of them even like all of these tech companies won't be able to just straight up, shadow people. They won't be able to just hide people's stuff, which happens to a ton of people. It's kind of like this untalked about thing, within a whole niche of everybody, right? If there are all these claims of all these things, I will tell you, it's awesome. It's very hopeful. I'm like over the moon with some of the changes, and with the things that they're saying that they'll do. But again, all of these changes are going to piss off a huge chunk of the most powerful people in the world, and I don't think that they're going to take it lying down. They didn't for the entire last term. I don't think that they're going to take it this term. And we saw to the lengths of where this can go with our former pres standing up on stage, barely missed it by checking a chart. So, I mean, if people think that this is over and everybody, take a deep breath now, it's over. He's got robot dogs on his lawn going around Mar-a-Lago with infrared sensors to make sure nobody's in the bushes. I think that they're taking some extra steps to keep him secure. I mean, they're putting plexiglass up everywhere he talks. So, is that ever going to go back to normal? I don't know. Especially with now, there's even more claims that everybody knows about now. I mean, it's going viral. Doesn't matter what side you are on. You're seeing these videos of some of the things that they're saying. And these are complete opposites of what has been now almost like it's accepted in society as the norm. And it's not norm. So, yeah, I think that we are in for some craziness. So if on December 13th, and I'm just pulling something right out, hopefully it's not a Friday, that, Russia all of a sudden starts invading 4 countries, I would not be surprised. I hope that doesn't happen, but who knows? All of these countries at one point or another have worked with each other, or they all have a similar thing in common. They all love money and power. So we'll see. And then let's go to the next piece. Dozens of flights, ships disrupted after North Korea jams GPS signals, Seoul says. Dex, do you want to go over that?
Well, where do you think they're getting this from? So look, Seoul is coming out accusing North Korea of disrupting GPS signals. This is the exact same thing that Russia has been doing all over Europe and the Baltic Sea, more so around the fighting areas in Ukraine. But here we have North Korea, who's been sending in now troops, was sending munitions and weaponry, and looking for favors from Russia. Now we've got reports that allegedly from South Korea that North Korea is jamming GPS signals. So 2 things on that. One, where are they getting the tech from? Obviously, it's probably something along the lines of what Russia has been doing in Europe. So they got that. Probably got a help from them. And number 2, it's one of the things you would expect them to do when they prepare for or to practice for actually going to conflict with South Korea, which they've done everything else up until this point to prepare for it, from taking down entry points to putting in large trenches and removing and clearing land so they have clear line of sight at the DMZ.
And I want to remind people, with all of this stuff going on, we forget about, everything that is going on at home. Now, as far as what, throughout the past we've seen with all of this happening, and I do want to put out a reminder. You guys have heard me talk about over the past, I don't know, probably 3 months since I saw a really shocking video of just this gentleman who was PTSD, in a different world. He was in a battlefield in a parking lot, and there were ambulance workers essentially waiting for him to come out of it, because it was then turned into a medical situation because he was in public. Everybody was concerned about it. I want to point out that one thing that I do believe that would change, and I hope that this is a promise that is kept, is that they're going to put a bigger effort in taking care of the veterans. Now, when we saw over the last few years, there were certain things, no matter where you sat on whatever side of the aisle, most people do have this general support of the people that left our country over the last couple hundred years and went somewhere under the guise of protecting us at home. And those were our men and women in uniform. These men and women, it's really crazy right now. There's so much rhetoric about how you shouldn't join the military. There's videos on TikTok saying, oh, you're an idiot if you join this and that. They're having all-time low recruitment numbers. The youth essentially have been kind of brainwashed into saying, I hate this country and everything it stands for, when in reality, everybody wants to be here. Everybody wants to come here for the same reasons why so many of us are proud to be here. And it is something we take for granted. It is the general freedoms that we have. And you could be half glass, half full, half empty, and say, oh, well, now our freedoms are all being taken away. We still have so many more freedoms than so many other people in other countries. I mean, in China, you have to put up a white piece of paper to protest. And that is actually, getting spicy. Whereas here, we can actually do that as the timing of this video, right? Because who knows what could come in the future. But for the men and women that have left, it's like a lot of them sacrificed either their life or their livelihoods or their actual living life, right? They could have gotten back and survived, but a part of them died on the battlefield. They came back, but they were never the same. So I do want to say, again, thank you to all the veterans out there. Thank you again to everybody that has served. I appreciate all of you guys, and I do want to remind you that there is a ton of veterans in this audience. So if you are a veteran and never spoke out, say hi to some of the people in the chat. Again, I know that they would highly recommend saying hi. So there's a lot of really, really, really great, not only active duty, retired, and all forms, all branches of military in our audience. So thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for doing it, even when there's a huge swath of people right now that don't really see why it was important what you did. That's the hardest part, is knowing that there's just this whole generation of people that are kind of scoffing at it. Well, I think it will be back, and I think that these kids will kind of snap out of it, and they'll realize, I think it will take a lot of miracles for things to get set straight, but I think it will. So, happy Veterans Day to everybody, and I hope you guys are all safe wherever you are. As far as, I do want to make a comment about the GPS signals being jammed. We're seeing lots more examples of these kinds of techs being used. One thing that has just recently changed, the Dawn has now announced Tom Homan, former director of immigration enforcement, will now serve as a new position called the border czar. No kidding. And he is going to essentially going to report directly to the president, and is going to essentially be the person who's watching over the border. He also said, and this is crazy, some of the clips of Tom Homan, I mean, this is why I think something massive is coming. Like, this is nuts. So let me just show you Tom Homan. And we have actually talked about Tom Homan before. I'll show you here in a second, but
citizens, Exactly not. Look, the view, it's like the island of misfit toys. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. President Trump has made it clear. We will prioritize public safety threats and national security threats first. And that's what the focus will be. And there's over 1.5 convicted criminal aliens in this country with final orders removal that we're going to be looking for. There's thousands of gang members, illegal alien gang members we're going to be looking for. Now,
he says, if you're in the country illegally, you should be uncomfortable, right? This is one of his quotes. Look at, check this out. This is, let me see. Here's another one here. This is Tom Homan.
Another message to the criminal cartels in Mexico. You smuggled enough fentanyl across this country to kill 148,000 young Americans. You have killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined. And that's when President Trump gets back in office. He's going to designate you a terrorist organization, and he's going to wipe you off the face of the earth. You're done. You're done.
So this is Tom Homan. You know, we've actually, we were almost able to get Tom Homan in between all of this stuff on our show. And I want to remind you, there is, again, if you don't recognize him, you will probably recognize him from the next piece. Again, if you guys haven't already, make sure to go check out EMP Shield if you haven't. But I'll play you, this is probably where you might have seen him on our show.
my name is Tom Homan.
Let me turn this down a little bit.
My name is Tom Homan. I'm the former ICE director under President Donald Trump. And I'm here to ask America to wake up. You can protect yourself, and at the same time protect this great nation. The threat of electromagnetic pulse is real. EMP. If you don't know what it is, look it up. It's a matter of life and death. I recently partnered with a Midwest company, veteran-owned, that has developed a device you can hook up to your home or your vehicle to protect you against the EMP. I highly encourage you to go to EMP.
Now, again, with Tom Homan, I'm hoping that at some point, and I highly doubt it with now he is going to be back in the White House, if we're going to be able to get him on now. But I would love to pick his brain. He is now going to be put in charge of this whole craziness, and it doesn't matter where you sit. It's going to be highly interesting to see all of the folks that have been put in charge for this next admin to do what they're saying that they're going to do. You have RFK, and I forget what his name is, the most famous farmer, or the world famous farmer in play, changing almost everything, saying that they're going to ban certain colorings in our foods and do all of these things, a lot of things that they've already done in other places in the world, in Canada and in Europe, and all of these other things that have nasty, nasty chemicals in that are FDA has said, oh, they're totally fine. They're totally great. Totally safe for everybody. Meanwhile, we have all of these statistics to show that there's a lot of things going wrong. In fact, there's a ton of really creepy and just unexplained for statistics about people's mental health, as far as, sperm counts for men. You've got, of course, MS and autism and all of these other things that have been popping up. So again, Tom Homan not only partnered up with EMP Shield, but it, again, recommends it as well. So if you guys haven't already, go check it out. I do believe that this is going to end up saving lives in the end. So you can go watch the rest of that video over on our website. Again, go over to marfooglenews.com/EMP. If you want your car to run, your motorcycle, your generators, any kind of vehicle, essentially they have something for, then you'll definitely want to get an EMP shield on it. It takes 10 minutes. It's 3 wires, red to red on your battery, black to black on your battery, green to ground, and then you're good. Bolted into the side of your engine compartment, and you're good. marfooglenews.com/EMP, and make sure to use that code MARF. $50 off per device, and you're helping our channel at the same time. Again, affiliates like this, as much as people don't want to see ads, this is actually what is running. And not only this, but all of my peers, everyone in this space, essentially we're in this like bottom of the barrel, place where it's like everybody that has, I guess, in a small way, dissented is relying on another kind of lifeblood. So what you should really look for is people that are not only representing things that will actually help or that are good products, but also the ones that are doing it consistently with, obviously good companies. This one, everything's handmade in America, and the company itself, the founders, all the way up to the top, is an incredible company. So go check it out, marfooglenews.com/EMP. Along with all of the other kind of related channels and all of our friends. Again, we wouldn't have made it through the last 4 years if it wasn't for stuff like this. So again, thank you guys for supporting us. Thank you for, again, sharing our stuff out. And thank you for everybody that has stuck around year after year. And then Saudi Crown Prince condemns all attacks on Palestinians as genocide. So remember, everybody says, oh, all of these countries, Saudi Arabia is getting rid of Hamas, does all of this. But at the same time, this is happening. Remember, there are these headlines that are popping up that have everybody kind of high on hope right now, because there are all of these positive changes, or at least positive in the way of peaceful changes, things kind of winding down because T-Man is stepping into office, right? Saudi Arabia, one of the headlines was that they were going to kick out all of the people from a certain group. But at the same time, they're condemning Israel and saying, this is side. So this is a big deal. Dex, do you want to go over this? And this country in itself...
Well, yeah, that's the big deal.
Is a big deal.
The fact that the Crown Prince has now taken this position. This kind of goes against all of the work that had been done to sort of try to create peace there in the region many years ago with the former president. It also aligns now the Saudis with Iran, which they used to be adversaries of one another. We just reported recently that they were going to start doing drills together for the first time in God knows how long. They were doing military drills together, both the Saudis and the Iranians. So, yeah, this is a big shift, and it seems like a lot of this is just turning on Israel all of a sudden. Not all of a sudden, but all at once. It's not all of a sudden, because we've been seeing it happen and been building up since this time last year. But yeah, that's a big shift.
Same country that still takes people's heads off. Also the same country that has not answered the phone of our current prez, at the same time rolled out the red carpet for Xi Jinping. And Saudi Arabia is one of the countries that's interested or joining BRICS, is it not? Is that correct? I'm trying to remember if that was something they were doing as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that the messaging is very back and forth. It's very confusing, to say the least. By the way, thank you, Heidi Petrick, Laura Liberty, thank you, and Kreckles, and Marky Sparky, thank you for the support. Thank you, A Free Elf. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mitchell Wintro, for the super chat. And then thank you, Carlton Sutton. Thank you, Bible Talk 777. Lisa Douglas, thank you for your support this week. Can't say thank you enough for everybody that supported over the last few days. Appreciate you. And then Scott Dixon, and of course, Craig Alicious from Australia representing. All right, and then we have NATO military chief says troops would be on ground if not for Russian nukes. So I have a lot of questions. Of course, NATO troops would be on the ground in Ukraine fighting Russian forces if Moscow did not have nuclear weapons. The head of the alliance's military committee has said, I am absolutely sure if the Russians did not have nuclear weapons, which is kind of a stupid statement itself, we would have been in Ukraine kicking them out. Well, no-ish. The outgoing chief of NATO's military committee said, of course, Russia has the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons, followed closely by the U.S.'s nuclear arsenal. Combined, Moscow and Washington controlled around 90% of the nuclear weapons across the globe, which soon will probably be split up because China is trying to catch up. As Moscow troops poured into Ukraine in late February 2022, Russian President Vladimir Putin placed his country's nuclear deterrence forces on high alert. Months later, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that the risks of nuclear conflict had become considerable. So they're kind of admitting that these all of the threats and all of the different headlines that you see about Russia changing their nuclear doctrine, I mean, all of the saber rattling, essentially they're admitting that this works, right? Here's the thing. I think that I've even heard some say that it is out of stupidity that the Donald has a way with Putin and some others, because he doesn't worry about that when he says, we'll wipe you off the face of the planet. Okay, if you want to push that button, we'll push that button too. I think it comes down to believing if a president will do it. I think the current people believe, or at least that's what they're telling us, believe that Russia will push that button. I don't think they would. I think if somebody called Russia out on their bluff and said, okay, then nuke us, do that then. I don't think that they would. I don't think anybody wants mutually assured destruction. That's really, really stupid. But they're using that and saying that, I bet if we went in there with 100, 200, 300, 1 million troops, it would be a regular conflict and they would be able to push Russia out, or it would escalate into all of the allies like a straight up World War III, which I think that that's where it's headed. But I don't think it would go nuclear. It might go tactical nukes, or it might go, Moab or FOAB, father of all, explosives. But that's the thing. They're admitting that basically all of these things that have gone on, they're saying that that's why they're not there. I mean, Dex, do you see what I'm saying? It's like they're basically saying, of course Russia has nukes. Russia's had nukes for half a century. So why even make this point? They're basically saying, oh yeah, we would have kicked them out if they didn't have nukes. They're saying that the nukes are the only reason why this hasn't ended yet. Well, what's going to happen when the Dawn takes charge? What's the difference? I guess it's a belief level of who's going to actually do something, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just an argument that they're making to try to make it sound like they would be, they would be there. They would be big and strong and be willing to fight, but they're not willing to fight right now because of the nukes.
I think it's a bunch of BS. I think that, they're waiting for the most opportune time. This is all going to go out in steps. It's going to baby step right into World War III. And World War III isn't what everybody thinks it is. I think it is a way for the people that are above the people in charge, for them to kind of put in their play. They understand how things look. They understand how things are portrayed. They understand how the MSM, they think of this in a long-term, way. They don't look at just putting something out. They look at it as a whole. There's a reason all the media companies really go up to a tiny group of people. There's a reason why all of all of these governments answer to the same kind of groups. The W and the E and the F. All of these countries really have a smaller number of people from all over the world that are kind of pulling the strings. So there's a reason why they put out messages on MSM that you see the same exact message down to like they got a memo and a script being shown on 50,000 different news agencies. There's a reason why just in the last few months when they were doing all these campaign things, all of these media started using the same taglines to describe people. Everybody made fun of that they were calling JD and T-Man weird, right? Oh, it's weird. There's a reason why that happens, is because somebody is above all of them. And that's a really creepy thought, is the fact that they have so much sway over so many different places. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And make sure to also go thank your mods for hanging out in chat. Again, thank you, mods. They're all awesome creators. Go check out their channels over at marfooglenews.com/friends. You've got lots of great people there. Of course, thanks to Ilea, Wages World, Trinity, Rip Curl. Thank you for being here. I saw you're here tonight. Again, thank you. Chance, thank you for holding it down. And Jammer, thank you for holding it down as well. So, and then let's go into U.S. ordered TSMC to halt shipments to China of chips used in AI applications. So this is another one that it's like, first of all, you can tell that something massive is happening on this AI tip with China. China, our own Pentagon, and a position that was created for him, it was called, I believe, the Chief Software Officer of the Pentagon, left his position just a few years ago and wrote a letter on his LinkedIn as he left out. And he basically said he didn't want blood on his hands. And he said, this is really bad. I don't want this to be on my shoulders. I don't want this to be on my head. But China is now ahead of us, and ahead of us like a lot. And once they get ahead, it's essentially impossible to catch up because it's always exponential and it's always going to go one direction. So if you are behind at that current time, there's no way to just go boop and skip steps. So you'll always be behind in this. So with this, it seems like there's already been all of this talk about how they're going to create weapons, and they've created weapons. They've created swarms of drones, autonomous carriers with drones, all this kind of stuff that we're now just starting to say that the U.S. military is working with. And now they're halting shipments of specific things. Dex, why do you think they're halting specific shipments to China?
Well, this is a very big deal in the sense that this is, if you look at it from China's point of view, China looks at Taiwan as their country. They look at the TSMC as it should be their company. And they look at it as, why would the U.S. be telling them they can't give us something? But here's what technically is going on. It has been found in Huawei AI processors, certain chips that have come from these TSMC chips that they did not want, or they shouldn't have been used, or potentially shouldn't have been used for this AI capability. And because it is giving them an advantage or a capability of developing and furthering their AI, the U.S. is now asking demanding TSMC to stop shipping these chips. I think they're 7 nanometers or more advanced designs to China, so they can't be used. So they don't show up in these Huawei machines. At least that was their first evidence that they saw they were being used for AI. So these particular chips, while they may not have been necessarily designed for AI, were being used for AI because, there's been a sort of block on any of these high-end AI chips that we've been manufacturing here in the U.S., or at least designing here in the U.S., from exporting those to China, everybody from NVIDIA and others. But there are certain chips from TSMC that are now capable or close to capable of doing that, and it's been found in the wild, so they're shutting it down. China, I would think, would be really upset about this.
Yeah, essentially their adversary is telling them what they can do with their own country, or at least in their view, that's what's happening. So all of this is going to happen, and yet everything is going to be peaceful. Reminder, I love how the media has really put this like positive spin, even though they were negative about the dawn up until just a few days ago. Now everybody's saying, oh yeah, all of these good things are happening. And keep in mind, the same networks that totally trashed him are now making it a positive thing and passing on all of these great things about how all of these great things are going to happen the second he takes in. But you wonder, why are they not putting a negative spin on that? And now they're saying all of these countries are about to just be at peace now that Donald's there. I do believe that will have a big part of it, but why is the media portraying things the way they are? I think we will see very shortly that there is something way bigger going on behind the scenes. Like we're not out of the madness. It's about to get crazy. And I think that everybody is going to be so, out of it, hopeful and so, completely complacent. And then that's when you rip things away, and that's when people get really angry. And then Iran has developed fentanyl-based chemical weapons. Yes, Fenny, the stuff that's spreading through our streets and terrorizing our cities, based chemical weapons. This is the claim, that Iran is developing chemical weapons based on synthetic opioids such as Fenny, warns a U.S. expert. Powerful agents that could incapacitate soldiers or civilians when added to grenades or artillery. Yeah, So imagine an artillery shell goes poof and pops with a dust of Fenny with a tiny little speck inhaled, and they're gone. This sounds like, Dex, you know what this sounds like? This sounds like Cruel and Unusual. Like, this sounds like they're going to try to outlaw it like phosphorus or something, right? Like that. This is, I bet you they're going to.
Is it a workaround?
They're going to bring this to the UN or something.
Yeah, is this like a workaround for all the other type of nasty, weapons that they're not allowed to use? Does this give them a way of creating something that's just as vicious, but maybe isn't on the list of things they're not allowed to do with chemical and biological warfare?
Yeah, but I don't get it. Like, when you say allowed to, it's like when you're already at war with somebody. Like, I guess what happens if they just violate everything and they use the worst of the worst, the stuff that they're not allowed to do? Which there's lots of claims over the years that many countries have used things that they're not supposed to under all of these different agreements and different. What do they call that, by the way? It's not a treaty. It's, what do they call that when you're not allowed to use it?
Embargo?
Embargo? No, like.
Or you mean? Oh, okay.
Like something that's banned for use across the planet by anybody because of how bad it is. What is that called? Is that the UN? Yeah. What?
Well, there's different pacts and international laws that have been agreed upon by major countries around certain acts that can't be used or certain things that can't be used, certain acts that they've got. The Geneva Conventions is one of the big ones. I think that may be the one you're thinking of.
Yeah, so they're not allowed. White phosphorus is one of them, right? It lands on you and you melt. That's kind of like one of them, right? Or one of the phosphorus ones. I feel like that's been used, but they say it's not, or something like that. We can go to the chat too if you guys want to correct me. Obviously, I don't know enough to speak on it, but what I am speaking on is, in general, something that's so bad that you're not supposed to use it, right? There are no rules when war starts. That's what I'm saying. Like, but I guess if you look at it right now, Iran has the support of many Middle Eastern countries, and if those Middle Eastern countries are also, agreeing to all of this stuff, you have to think of it that way too. A lot of these countries are agreeing not to use these horrible, horrible weapons as well. So that they all have to kind of go with that. Asbestos, white phosphorus, Carol. Yeah, I don't know if I think that's not supposed to be, not a moratorium. John Baldwin. God, that word just sends, shivers up my spine. Just moratorium reminds me of CV. And remember when that moratorium ended and everybody got evicted? That was insane. Exactly what we said was going to happen. Just like Agent Orange. Yeah, a resolution. Randy D. CGM. Let's see here. Inhumane. Yeah, well, that's for sure. I would think that because they use thermobaric stuff, there's that one weapon that sucks all of the oxygen out and you basically implode. It's like things like that. What a horrible way to go. But it's like, what does it matter? I guess if it made you perish slowly, that's why something burning, that would be horrendous. But something where it just, blows you up. But it's so funny that we debate on how to take people's lives, like what's acceptable and not. Either way, war is war. It's something that's pretty horrible. You're taking people's lives. Humans still kill humans. And there's also this other thing that goes on where we decide what's an okay way to do it and what's a not okay way to do it. I'm pretty sure that the general rule should be that we should just not do it to each other at all. But again, we've justified some at the same time as condemning others. Dex, go ahead.
Apparently there was a 1997 chemical weapons convention that the U.S. is claiming it bans the development of pharmaceutical-based weaponry. So that's the one I think that they would push them on, in particular with this. So I don't know that this is a workaround. I think it's just another, like you said, all's fair in love and war, right? they're going to go all out and find any way they can to make something to their advantage.
Or is this a setup for a Fantastic Freddy? Think about it. Something happens. They're also saying that Iran has threatened the United States, that they've planned all of this stuff here. And you also see, like we did that small business innovation thing from the DoD, and just recently there was some weird things that have now gotten contracts. There's like the rapidly deployable checkpoints, the mass fatality tracking system, the broadband phones, if you don't have cell phone towers, that the government could still communicate. All of these weird things. What if there is a disaster like that happens? And they say, hey, this was, Iran. That's my worst nightmare, because there's not really a way you can prep against bio things besides being in a sealed up place and having some way to breathe beyond, a few minutes, right? If you seal up your house to be airtight, which is, that's pretty hard to do. You have something floating around in a city. How the heck do you protect against that long term? If you seal yourself off, then you don't have oxygen. I guess if you do it well enough to where it settles. But what if we've just covered stuff about how they can make something aerosolized and have it kind of swirling around for months? In one case, they were doing experiments. New York just did that weird drill where they were releasing aerosoled agents into the subway, and then all over the subway, they went to different exits and recorded how it would travel through the subway. By the way, the results of that, someone that lives in New York got to talk to one of those guys and said that that it was very, very unnerving how far they said that it was registered. But if you think about it, the subway tunnels are, just like if you close a door in your house, on the other side of your house, a window or a door will slam. That's really disturbing. Somebody releases something in the subway, something like that, it would be all over New York in minutes. So I guess it's a good thing that they're practicing or trying to figure out what would happen, but it's kind of creepy knowing what is being said about, what they're developing. And by they, we don't know if it's truly they or somebody needs to point a finger in a certain direction after it happens. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Saren, thank you. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you over on Rumble. Thank you over on X. Appreciate you guys. Thank you. Let's see here. Let's go over to the chat. Craig Alicious, nice to see you. I'd buy a Tesla in a heartbeat if I could afford it. I think it's going to bite everybody in the butt. Here in Seattle, everybody has one. They're just everywhere now. They don't even look cool anymore. When they first came out, the more sportier ones, back when they were all sport ones, they looked very, very cool, like sexy. I remember the first one I saw was like a bright red one, but it was like an off red or something. But it just looked awesome. Now you see 50 of them in a parking lot. And you see, yesterday we were at the park. There were probably about 10 Indian family members, and they all got into a different Tesla. One had like an X, that was the only difference, but all the others had they had a blue one, a red one, a yellow, not a yellow, but like a beige one. They all had a Tesla. And I was thinking, you're not even unique anymore if you all have the same car. The only difference was the guy with the SUV one, but it looked the same color. It just looks all the same. Again, what happens if the grid goes down? I don't know. I think it's going to bite people in the butt. Rooted SU, and they're cool cars. I would love to drive one just once even. I want to see the, 0 to 60s in 2.5 seconds or whatever the heck it is. That's insane. SDRC, unique is bad, uniformity good. Yes, right? LOL, Danish Girl. Hey, Danish Girl, nice to see you. Dex James, thank you for helping out in there. What happens when all those batteries get soaked in water? Yeah, like if we have a tsunami or something. Well, being real, remember that call we got about the chemicals and the things? If they end up having a fire of one of those cars, they said don't be anywhere near it. Maximum overdrive, yeah. Like in Leave the World Behind. Very creepy, but possible scenario. All right, and before we move on, make sure to go check out Jase. If you haven't already, if you don't have a med kit or an emergency med kit, that is exactly what this is. Now, as far as antibiotics go, I firmly believe that this is something where you have something that could be a simple cut on your finger. This could be the difference between a cut on your finger or a funeral. And we don't think of it like that now that we have hospitals, we have ERs, we have all of these different, basically services that we can call on. But in the event that we lose our power, that we lose everything, yes, you could wholly depend on, say, if something really bad happens, you have some horrible event happens, you could hope on some of the natural things. But again, I believe antibiotics are a good thing in moderation. First of all, again, with everybody taking them for everything, that's not a good thing. Taking them for every time you get sick, that's how you get to, antibiotic-resistant bugs. And that's how they say eventually every one of these viruses will get to that point. But until we're at that point, and if you are somebody who doesn't take them, this is an extremely important kit. Antibiotics could save your life. And again, that is if we don't have pharmacies or hospitals to go to. So Jase is a super simple service. You can go and do a telehealth appointment through a board-certified doctor. It's completely above board. Call them up or go to their website, marfooglenews.com/Jase, and get your appointment. You can also get something called Jase Daily. That has, again, a 12-month supply of your regular meds. Now, not all meds are supported, but you might want to check if there is something that you are dependent on. And even if you don't want to be, it might be something that you have to take, that you won't be able to get off of. Then this is definitely a good thing. Remind you, this is for any kind of event, for a storm, a hurricane, for a fire, anywhere where you might be trapped, you will not have access to medical. Again, this is what this is for. It has a kit, and you can also add on things like albuterol. You can add on all sorts of other things as well. Especially even that stuff that, of course, Joe Rogan took and CNN hates. You can even add that in as an add-on. Go to marfooglenews.com/Jase and make sure to use the code MARF. Not only are you helping us out with that with a small commission, but you are also helping support independent media at the same time as getting a discount. So thank you guys for doing so. And then Houthis claim Palestine 2 missile hit Israeli military base. So they named it Palestine 2. And Dex, do you want to tell them where this thing hit or supposedly hit?
Well, they're claiming this was a hypersonic ballistic missile known as the Palestine 2. It was used to strike the Nahal Sorik military base in central Israel, in between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. So they said the hit was accurate and led to a fire ignition in the vicinity of the targeted site. I think if this is true, though, to the extent that it is hypersonic, I don't know if that's a major, advancement in the type of technology they've been using. I know they had them. They talked about having them, and I think there's been some reports that they might have tried to use them in the Red Sea. But this could be maybe one of the first, unless I'm missing one from the past, that they said they actually launched at Israel.
Yeah, and as far as how did it, not get stopped? What questions do you guys have? Let me know in the comments down below. And then Pentagon officials discussing how to respond if Trump issues controversial orders. So again, Pentagon officials and this is, by the way, have to point out, this is CNN. So keep in mind who is saying it. Pentagon officials are holding informal discussions about how the Department of Defense would respond if Donald issues orders to deploy active duty troops domestically and fire large swaths of apolitical staffers. And they say apolitical, which is kind of like who is anymore. And then T-Man has suggested that he would be open to using active duty forces for domestic law enforcement and mass deportations, and has indicated he wants to stack the federal government with loyalists and clean out corrupt actors in the U.S. national security establishment. T-Man in his last term had a fraught relationship with much of his senior military leadership, including now retired General Mark Milley, who took steps to limit T-Man's ability to use nuclear weapons while he was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The president-elect, of course, meanwhile, has repeatedly called U.S. military generals weak and ineffective leaders, which many agree with, because you have, thing is that 95% of us agree that China is not our best friend. They may be a close business partner, but they're not our best friend. And they're actively working, and even a country that has exact replicas of our carriers in the desert, and they've even painted like USS this on it, and they're taking jets and bombing it for practice. You don't call them and give them a heads up that we're about to attack. That's exactly what Milley did. Even after that, which makes it so suspicious, after that, different platforms even said that they were watching anybody talk negatively about the military and the military staff. If you remember that, because that whole thing got a lot of fire towards Mark Milley. He literally told them, like, he would give them a heads up or try to give them basically a 30-minute or whatever. I forget if he said a specific minute. He's like, oh, you'll know beforehand. That's insanity. Not to mention, we actually talked about over on our Marfoogle News short about how there has been a complete overhaul of the military. So they're talking about how he would use the military. This is exactly what has been claimed for years, is that essentially if he gets in office, he's going to be a dictator. And what's funny is I don't think anything is going to be hit on that. If you say that about him, it's not, nothing happens. But if you say the opposite, it does, which it's kind of like Voltaire. Voltaire quote there. It's like, the people you can't talk about, which ones are in power. And of course it says, quote, "We are all preparing and planning for the worst case scenario, but the reality is we don't know how this is going to play out yet." So they're telling the public they're planning for worst case scenario. So what is going to happen, they are going to obviously make this, they're going to frame it in a certain way. Why CNN is saying this is just pretty obvious. Troops are compelled by law to disobey unlawful orders, said another defense official. But the question is, what happens then? Do we see resignations from senior military leaders, or would they view that as abandoning their people? It's unclear to the point who Donald will choose to lead the Pentagon, though officials believe T-Man and his team will try to avoid the kind of hostile relationship he had with the military during his last administration, said a former defense official with experience during the first T-Man administration. The relationship between the White House and the DoD was really, really bad, and so I know it's top of mind of how they're going to select the folks that they put in the DoD time this time around. So are they preparing us for something? Dex, go ahead.
How do they find somebody to fill like Milley's position or the current Joint Chief of Staff position and trust that they're going to be who they think they're going to be? I mean, that's such a scary thought. Like you said, look at what happened in the past. Like, would you ever thought Milley would have been that way? Maybe you would have. Of course, we all thought that after the fact. But going in, he picked him. He was like, yeah, this is a great guy. And, it's concerning. It's certainly concerning because that is a very key position, I think, in especially as it relates to his ability to move forward with any of the plans that he has.
You know what's funny is is he still active? Yeah. Okay, so I don't know what the salary is, but some say 5 million, some say 11 million. How does a general get a net worth that high? I mean, that's but none of these are accurate, so who knows? It's like I just have a feeling right before that all happened that somehow a couple mil just popped up in an account somewhere and he got a code to access it or something. Like, who would have done that? At the time, it was so wild for him to say something like that. And at that point, it was near the kind of start of these really just crazy things that were starting to happen. And it was almost like at some point, it was obvious what was going on. It was, and they didn't care. They were less concerned about hiding it. Yeah, $204,000 a year. Yeah. A lot of it says that he's a multi-millionaire. Now, I bet he gets paid a lot of money to go speak somewhere. He could get paid $100,000 to be on Fox News or something, or on CNN. But yeah. Tucker has some harsh words. Go read the Forbes article about that. And that was before Tucker got canceled. Go read that article. He has some pretty nasty things to say, if I remember it right. But yeah, what do you guys think of what is happening right now? Do you think that they're setting up for something before all of this changes over? Some weird things happened on the last changeover. I don't know if you remember, a large swath of the internet all of a sudden do you remember that a large swath of the internet got transferred over to an office above like a restaurant? And it was like, or a large part of the DOD or government internet got transferred over for a brief period of time. And of course, some people thought that it was, the whole number 17 thing that was about to get in place, and that the whole swamp was about to be cleaned out and all of this stuff. But no, there is still no, explanation for that. Why the heck all of the internet stuff? And that was the day that it transferred over, the power. Dex, do you remember that?
Yeah, all the IP addresses, a large chunk of them. They said it was for some sort of covert activity, but yeah.
Was that on November 5th, or was that the day that they changed power? That was the day that they changed power.
I thought it
right?
was the day they changed power. I thought it was like the 19th and 20th was the time period for that.
Yeah, I think it was too. And it was in some little, if you looked at the address, it looked like a corner store, and like an apartment above it. So what the hell happened there? We still don't know. And before anything else, make sure to go check out Harvest Right if you're trying to freeze dry your own food. This is one of the best machines, and during hard, crazy times, during disasters, these things are almost impossible to get. Better time to get it is definitely when it's on sale, and probably the best sale of the year, this is the best sale so far, is Black Friday. And they are already doing their Black Friday prices up to $900 off. On different models, so make sure to go check them out. That means all of the different sizes, all of the different tray sizes, all of those have different sales going on right now. Again, up to $900 off with the link marfuglenews.com/freeze. Again, that's marfuglenews.com/freeze. All right, and then by the way, thank you so much to everyone that has popped in tonight. Thank you over on D Live. I appreciate everybody over there. Thank you. Thank you. Mick123. Thank you, Kimbria. Thank you, Michelle K. Looks like Kimbria, you are our top supporter tonight. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. And Dex, thank you so much for your service.
Absolutely. Much love, brother. And special shout out to the veterans out there on Veterans Day. Appreciate all of you.
Happy Veterans Day to everybody, and I hope everybody is safe. I hope everybody is sound. And make sure to come back tomorrow. We will have updates on everything that is going on. Thank you, and make sure to also go to marfooglenews.com and sign up for alerts. So, love you guys. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. It's now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout-out. It's a shoutro.